Our next artist was very proudly supported by the Medici family in Florence. His name was Botticelli, and he was one of many artists who were taken under the wing and under the protection of the Medici family, specifically Lorenzo de' Medici. Now we're looking at here a painting, a portrait by Botticelli, which is titled Young Man Holding a Medal of Cosimo de' Medici. Now I show this to you here when I introduce Botticelli because it is also assumed that this may be a self-portrait of Botticelli. It looks very similar to other known or identified self-portraits of Botticelli. And what this young man is doing here is presenting to the viewer a gold medallion that has the image of Cosimo de' Medici on it. Now remember, Cosimo is Lorenzo's grandfather. And this man is dressed like a Florentine man, and he's presenting himself at the foreground or the front of this picture plane, where the background seems to recede off into that far distant hazy, what is that called? Yep, atmospheric perspective. And so what we have, and why we assume this to be a self-portrait of Botticelli, is a young man who very proudly is claiming a connection with the Medici family. And we know from various records and writings and diaries from the Medicis and other people around Florence that Botticelli was taken into the Medici palace, clothed, fed, trained. He was given an education in ancient Greek and Roman philosophy and mythology, and he was then expected to use this education and this privilege for the benefit and the use of the Medici family, like Lorenzo de' Medici. So here, it's not a big stretch to think that this might be Botticelli himself, and he's like, yo, what's up? This gold medallion? Yeah, Medici's. They paid for it. They believe in me. I got their support. Many of you may be familiar with Botticelli because of this painting. And this is our next artwork. This is Botticelli's Birth of Venus. In this painting, we see the mythology or the story of the goddess of love and sex. Her name is Venus, and how she was born according to mythology. So let me just tell you, the story of her birth is quite insane. Okay, so according to Greek mythology, there were two Titans, these massive gods of the sky, Saturn and his son Uranus. And one day, Uranus found out that his dad, Saturn, was cheating on his mom. And in this rage, he not only attacked Saturn, his dad, but he cut off his testicles. And he threw the testicles down from the sky to Earth, where they landed in the ocean. And then it's said that his, bloody testicles, they mixed in with the salt water and created this thick foam. And then out of this writhing foam came this perfectly formed adult female goddess. Now the Greeks called her Aphrodite, and the Romans called her Venus. But she is either both Venus and Aphrodite. She is the goddess of love and sex and beauty and fertility. And as it's said in the myth, the goddess was then gently pushed by the ocean waves onto her sacred island. So that's what we see here. We see Venus being gently pushed onto and landing on her sacred island. The sacred island is the island of Cyprus. And there she is met by a nymph. A nymph is like a minor mythical creature. here the nymph is meeting her, and she's gonna quickly cover her up with this beautiful fabric. This drapery flutters in the wind, because guess what? Not only have the gentle waves pushed her onto shore, but also the god of the west winds, his name is Zephyr. Zephyr and his wife Flora are aiding in her arrival. So you can see his cheeks are billowing. Anytime in art you see a figure going, blowing in their big cheeks like that, they're a wind. And Zephyr is the wind of the west. And here he is blowing Venus onto shore. And then his wife, Flora, which means flower, look at her mouth is open and flowers are coming out. So we're supposed to take in the sounds and the smells of the birth of Venus. We hear the gentle waves onto the shore. We smell flowers in the air and that wind rippling through the tapestry that the nymph is now going to drape across Venus. Wow, what a scene, right? Whew, okay, so let's pull back. Let's think about Botticelli and what he's doing here. Well, he's first of all showing off his education, because he has been trained by Lorenzo, or more specifically, more accurately, he's been trained by Lorenzo's tutors to understand the dynamic layers of the birth of Venus, the myth itself. And this painting is painted on a fabric, a piece of canvas, that we are unsure the original location or intention of it, but artists and art historians believe that the panel, which, let me show you how big it is in real life. Hold on. Here it is. It's now currently on display in the Uffizi Gallery, the main gallery or museum in Florence. But the original purpose or function of the artwork we're unsure. Based on the markings and the way that people have spoken about it in the past, we think it might have been the back of a piece of furniture, or perhaps part of a larger tapestry on a wall hanging. But whatever the original location, when we look at this piece, we're supposed to be able to recognize the classical theme, not only of the birth of Venus, but also a connection to Greek philosophy on love and beauty. Huh? Yeah, okay. So what we understand is the birth of Venus is symbolic of a larger understanding and appreciation of beauty, and that beauty is a pivotal element, and love is a pivotal element of humanity. In fact, a humanist named Marsilio Ficino said in his treatise on love, "Those who embrace a contemplative life, or a life with the pursuit of intelligence and reason, will immediately see and understand the spiritual and divine beauty in a physical beauty, not carnal lust." So when we consider Marsilio Ficino's humanist approach to a goddess of love and sex and beauty, what we're supposed to be connecting to isn't, oh, there's a hot chick right there. You're not supposed to be checking out her bod and looking at her and getting all hot and bothered. Instead, you're supposed to be connecting her to the larger elements of humanity, like love and the beauty of nature and the beauty of life. And these are following not only humanist principles, but also then creating a dialogue or a discussion of how these physical attributes can lead to a greater understanding of yourself, of humanity, and therefore an argument that art aids the development of humanity. Nice, right? Now, Botticelli is also going to be showing off his understanding of the ancient Greek and ancient Roman art. The posture in which Venus stands is remarkably similar to ancient Greek and ancient Roman statues of the goddess. Now remember, as I said, the Greeks called her Aphrodite, and here we're looking at a late classical Greek statue of the goddess Aphrodite, and we see a similar turn of the hip and this adjustment of her hand to cover over her genitals. The modesty, but also the confidence of this figure in the late classical Greek is being echoed in the Renaissance or rebirth. If you're thinking it's just one statue, no. Here is a later Greek work from the Hellenistic period. If you're not familiar with the Hellenistic period, that's fine. Don't worry, I'm not going to quiz you on that. But I want you to be aware of an echoing of posture that we see here. This turn of the hips. She stands in this exaggerated contrapposto. So too does Botticelli's Venus stand in this exaggerated contrapposto. It also lends to this idea of movement, that she's about to lift this leg up off the shell and onto the shore. Imagine us guests in Lorenzo's palazzo, and we have, you know, our glass of Chianti, and we're walking around and we're like, Lorenzo, what latest work do you have on display? And he's like, oh, check this out. And we're like, oh, I know this myth because I'm extremely educated. That's the birth of Venus. Look, he's got Zephyr and Flora. He's got the nymph Pomona. Oh, I love it. I love the amount of detail your artist has gone into, the layers of this mythology. Yes, yes, yes. Now let's look more specifically at these details, because Botticelli was celebrated for his ability to control the paint material itself. Here we are. This fabric has amazing detail. Look at these refined elements on the border of the collar. The flowers are identifiable. They're not just like generic flowers. These are all flowers that easily would be identified, especially by those botanists or those flower nerds. Flowers and the rich texture and color of the fabric, those are all not only there to impress upon us, but also make a connection back to Florence. Remember, Florence is known for its output of fine tapestries, fabrics. The nymph, her name is Pomona. The sleeves of her gown are semi-transparent, and so you can see her skin under this soft, gauzy sleeve. Botticelli is showing off. He's showing off his understanding of the natural world and the easy representation, or not the easy, the identifiable representation of different flowers and different trees, and also his ability to capture difficult things like transparent sleeves. I mean, seriously, you try to paint something that is transparent, that is clear, but also something that you can kind of see over the sleeve or over the arm. That's really hard to do. So Botticelli's showing off. Also, in connection with the Medici family, this tree behind her is an orange tree. You see those little blossoms there? Those are orange blossoms. The Medici crest features oranges. So even without having any obvious elements of the Medici family, Botticelli's layered in Lorenzo de' Medici into the scene of the birth of Venus.